I used to listen to good podcasts when everything was fine, but now I listen to this podcast because I've lost my mind. My gym partner is a podcast. My gym partner is a podcast. Yeah!
Bull shark, porcupine, I don't know what. Doing this podcast is a pain in the...
Renee!
What? I was just gonna say my eyes, because these episodes gave me cataract.
Oh,
They do
Mainly
that.
the last episode. Well, we'll get into it. But hey, welcome to the show, everybody.
welcome
Yeah,
to My
everybody's
Gym Partners podcast, where we watch episodes of a cartoon and then we talk about it. That's
The show keeps giving us more and more.
yeah, this show is the gift that keeps on giving and also taking, and it takes and it takes and it never stops.
But are we taking from this show to use for internet clout, just so that we can score with the kids of this generation talking about this ancient show?
This is what we have to contribute to the world.
We're basically Friday nights, that old Cartoon Network segment, but like fast forwarded into the future.
We have the
We're giving you the cartoons.
yeah, we have the advantage of being in the future now, so we can look back on this and realize man's mistakes. We're talking about the episodes The Sheds and Shiny Thing, I think, is what
Yes.
it's called. How
You
could I
all
have...
can
Yes.
probably guess what the Sheds is about,
Well,
as if we even have to say anything.
I gotta
So-
say, for this combo of episodes, these are probably the best ones. I love these episodes.
They're
These
really
episodes
funny. They handle what this show is best at, where it's just funny cartoon animal antics, not trying to worry about telling a message or anything. Just, oh hey, this is a situation in a human school, but it's a lot funnier in an animal school because they're animals, and this is what happens.
Exactly. So let's not waste any time, because I really want to talk about The Sheds. And why do I want to talk about The Sheds? Well, because it features the
Oh.
best character in this show.
So
Who does
Jake-
it feature?
So Jake Spider Monkey takes up carpentry, and that's why it's called the Shed.
No.
Yeah, it's about all these characters setting up a nice little shop in a shed.
No.
No.
We know that isn't what it's about. Who is it?
It slips. Oh my god, it's a slip-centric
Oh god.
episode. It's happening,
Bro.
it's happening, oh god.
Finally, they could have given us a Windsor episode. For all of the like side characters that they could have given us an episode about first. I'm so happy that they gave Slips his time to shine.
He really deserves it too. I really like how this episode opens, because it's just Adam and Jake playing tetherball, but Jake is just kicking the shit out of Adam.
Yeah, he's so strong. He's incredibly strong, and he just beats the hell out of Adam at this game of tetherball. And Adam, for some reason, is confused that he's being hurt.
No, he says to himself, like, why did I decide to play tetherball with you?
Well,
Why
he's
did I agree to this?
He's
Yeah,
regretting his
exactly.
choices here. And I think Jake's is like, because you're an agreeable guy. Like, you are. Which,
Oh, you'll agree to anything.
it's like, wow, way to give us a little window into their relationship dynamic. But we get interrupted because there's some noises going on.
Very scritchy noises, very
Very-
disturbing noises that get the attention of Jake and Adam. And who is it? It Slips.
None
just-
other than the man, the myth, the legend himself, Slips.
Slips.
And he's he's enjoying himself. He's
I don't know if he's enjoying himself.
well, I mean, he's letting out little, like, it's just like how anybody would enjoy themselves when they're like getting a scratch, when they're scritching. It might not be like, joy, but I guess relief is the word.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
it's
like
very
rubbing
relief.
against a bench or something, because they're like outside, I guess, on the playground or something, which is,
Yeah.
I didn't have a playground in middle school. What the
Not
hell?
Maybe
Well,
it's
I mean,
like, oh, well, you know what it could be? It could be like the outside area for like the gym, you know?
yeah, like the courts and stuff. I had that in middle school, but mainly because it was all outside, and all the classrooms were in these little like pods. So,
Oh, I see.
Anyway.
Oh.
Oh yeah,
but anyway,
he's rubbing against the bench and like he just looks like so stressed because he's trying to not scratch as soon as Adam and Jake walk over and like start talking to him, but he's got this he's like sweating, he's got like an inner monologue like I have to scratch, I have to, this is torture.
he looks so labored as he's trying not to scratch, just heavily breathing, just.
He's flaking. He's got pale patches of skin, like, just peeling off of his body. He looks like he's in rough shape. He looks like a Fallout ghoul.
and he kind of runs off after a while because he's like, I gotta go. And Jake and Adam are just kind of like, that was weird. What was up with that? And Jake kind of, he's like,
foreshadows.
Yeah, he's like, maybe he has a disease. And I was like, okay.
And as soon as I heard that, I thought, oh no, is this going to be another episode where, misunderstanding and hysteria befall the halls of Charles Darwin Middle School?
Why? No. In my Charles Darwin,
Jarwin?
My Charles
in my middle school? No.
That's never going to happen. We're never going to have an episode that focuses around a misunderstanding.
Anyway, there's a misunderstanding.
Not my cartoon.
Well, first thing. So, Jake, Lupe, Windsor, Nina, Ingrid. I'm sorry.
Who's Nina?
Nina's the
Did I
secret character who's been erased from our memories, like the Bernstein Bears.
I miss Nina. I miss Nina so much. Is that why this podcast is happening?
We're gonna find Nina. We're gonna find evidence that she exists.
Rename this podcast to Finding Nina. And nobody knows what it's about. And then they listen to it. It's just about my gym partners and the monkey.
They're walking
Make
in the
world
hallway,
there.
right? And they're talking about the latest episode of Yo Mama.
Yeah, you see, Yo Mama! God, that's such an early 2000s thing. When I heard that, I couldn't just...
I kept thinking of those like Yo Mama YouTube videos where like they
It
had
made me
like
think.
this Patrick Warburton sounded like to do these Yo Mama jokes. But anyway, that's not the.
Jake mentions that there's like that Truffles is in the show. Truffles Duvall. You can't forget her. She's very important to Jake's character. He just loves that Truffles. And Windsor like makes fun of her, like talks really eloquently about how bad her dancing was because it was in some other style, and Jake's just like offended by it.
Yeah.
But there's a rattling though, so one of the lockers nearby is just rattling with some activity. And what's going on in there?
Ooh, whose locker is it?
Well, Slips falls out of it, leading Jake to believe that it's Slips' locker, even though all this Truffles Duvall fan stuff falls out.
Including a very intricate hat right on top of Jake's little disgusting head.
Comically contrasting with him denying that he likes Truffles Duvall at all.
Yeah.
But of course it is his locker, and he's angry at Slips that Slips was in there.
But of course, Slips was in there just relieving himself. Scratching himself.
Yeah, he was in there pissing himself.
Oh
no. All right, I'm sorry. Okay. He was scratching himself, which I don't know why he did that in Jake's locker. But anyway,
He was just so
Jake-
desperate. I bet Jake leaves his locker unlocked, and that's how he got in.
Yeah, Jake doesn't know how to operate, like, the little, like, dial that locks it. He doesn't even know.
He just leaves it slightly over, and Slips was just happened to be walking by and needed relief in a secluded place.
It's a
True,
nice
yeah.
little place for him to just, like, scritch and scratch all up himself.
And when he falls out, he starts like wriggling around, and Jake is like, look, Slips is trying to dance like Truffles, but you're doing it wrong. And he just like pushes him over like really hard.
He just shoves him, but like Slips doesn't really like say anything. He just kind of looks awkwardly and slithers away as Jake is just doing his own dance.
His own monkey dance. It is.
God, that little dance that Jake does. They love using these stock monkey sounds.
There's a lot of them in these 2 episodes for sure.
Like, I don't blame them, I guess. They got a monkey character. They gotta use them, right? They gotta use the ahs.
They put the deposit on those jungle sound effects, and by God, they're gonna use them.
That's pretty much half their budget, after all.
There was something I wanted to go over towards the moment that Windsor decided to, like, basically just insult Jake's idol.
Yeah.
And I wrote here in my notes, Windsor, shut the fuck up.
I think Windsor is a very unlikable character.
He is, because he's just, I don't know, like a men's right activist or something. Like,
Look, alright.
He's like a know-it-all. That's the thing.
Yeah, he's a know-it-all.
He's just a know-it-all, and like I feel that like Windsor has the potential. Windsor has the potential to be a good character. He has his own centric episodes that we'll see, and I guess I'm the only one here, but I believe he can show himself to be a fun character with his own arcs.
I'm sure he's an interesting character, this gorilla man who talks funny.
Yeah, talks like Napoleon Dynamite, funny 8.
Well, we gotta get to the lunchroom because this scene disgusted me beyond all.
Every single fucking time we gotta get to the lunchroom.
Adam's there. And he's like,
and the idiot forgot his fucking lunch again. I'm so tired of this little dumbass continuing to like eat the lunch and complain about it. He keeps forgetting his goddamn lunch.
Yeah, he's like got like a bowl of disgusting soup. I don't know what was in it. Like,
oh man, why bugs again? It's just like that would be like the fucking main thing that I would think about if I went to an animal school. I'm so tired of you, Adam. Please bring your lunch. Please stop starving.
He doesn't get to eat.
It's
like
for your own health.
And even then, he's like, oh, might as well. And he's about to take a sip, and a little scale like falls into his spoon, and he's like, hey, what the heck's this? And then like
it's a little burger colored scale.
Yeah,
too.
It's disgusting. Yeah. And then like 2 seconds later, like a whole bunch of scales just like plop into the rest of his soup, and he's like, ugh, what's this? And you look over and there's Slips, and he's scratching himself with like a fork, and all his scales are just getting in everywhere. It's
like I don't like, for anybody who hasn't seen this, it's a bowl of just like green dandruff. Like that's what you would call it. It's just like, it's thick. It's like a coleslaw.
Ew.
Like that was the most disgusting thing I could think of to describe it, because it's a really gross concept. It was just like a bowl of soup, but it's mostly like
dead skin. And one little piece of it floats in the air, and it lands ever so perfectly in Lupe's open mouth.
Not her mouth. It just goes in there, and she's like, I'm infected with that.
Which I think that's the first time that's the name given to this fake disease in this episode. Jake refers to it before as like just some disease that Slips could possibly have, but Lupe just flat out says, "Oh, I got the I
got the
which like I felt like there should have been at least something, because it feels like that wasn't supposed to be the first time that name for it was given. It feels like Jake might have offhandedly said something about it, but I don't know. Maybe it's because Lupe was choking on a scale.
I think that was the joke, that she was like trying to say what it was, but like I guess just choked and couldn't, but either way it's disgusting. And I think Jake or Lupe says something like Slips is contagious. Like, what a
It's like
freak.
Slips is like a disgusting, like, God, it sucks that they treat him so bad in this.
Oh yeah, they're
They
so
treat him
mean.
horribly in this. But
Because, like, that's about it that happens in the lunchroom. But
well, actually, Lupe starts to molt.
Oh yeah,
You see
it's
her
important.
feathers drop, and that adds to the hysteria that this is a disease. Because everyone's showing signs of molting or whatever. There's a funny bit where Lupe knocks into Ingrid in a panic and just goes completely naked.
Yeah, she
falls
goes
into Adam's bowl.
her body just kind of falls limply into Adam's bowl, and Adam just gives it to Jake. He doesn't...
like he expects that Jake's gonna eat Lupe's dead body or something. And Jake just gives a weak, awkward smile. Like, what?
There's some implications there, but I really want to talk about the next the next scene. They're in Miss Chameleon's class, and Miss Chameleon's like, here's the assignment. You're going to write about your miserable childhoods. And I was like, this wasn't me.
Excruciating detail.
This is gonna be easy for Adam.
So easy. He's still living, like... How he's got material from like an hour ago. Like, he doesn't even have to think that far into the past.
He's thinking to the future even of what's going to happen, because most assuredly something's going to happen to him.
Yeah, all the kids in the class though are like, "Hold on, Miss Chameleon, what is she, like a bison or something?"
A water buffalo.
Yeah,
I think,
she like pulls at her fur and she's like, "I got clumps of fur coming out." And some bear is like, "I want to eat a lot and then go to sleep," because like hibernation. And then he looks over at like a fish kid who's like sitting next to him, and he like leans in and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing for lunch?" And I was like,
What are you doing for lunch?
it was so weird because
The way that he says it is like very unique. It sounds incredibly like sensual.
yeah, he's like hitting on him. It's it's odd. And Adam is like, of course, because he has to get in on this because he has to put his face into everything, and he pulls down his shirt a little bit and he's like, "And I got a little hair on my chest and it didn't used to be there.
This is horrible."
but Jake, even more so wanting to be in on it, chews off his own arm hair and is like, "Miss
Chews off his
Chameleon,
entire arm.
Miss Chameleon, I'm balding on my arm, and this didn't happen before."
Why is this happening to me? And then, you know, Adam, of course, has to be like, "Well, you fucking idiot, you're just making that up." And he's just like, "Yeah."
You
Yeah,
missed
yeah.
it. It's like, yeah, I
He
just want to
doesn't
be.
deny it,
I want to
but-
be in the group.
But then he decides to rally everyone together, points at Slips. It's like, it's him who caused all this. If he didn't spread that, oh, everybody, none of this would have happened to us.
And
God.
Slips is just like, "What?" Like, he looks so sad. I was like, "Stop it! Stop being mean to Slips."
The thing that he said, like, after, like, everybody ran out of the classroom in a panic
Oh.
was, like, it broke my heart when I heard it because it's just so sad. He just says, "I just wish I could disappear." And, like, in that tone, and it's like, holy shit, I'm sorry, buddy.
That's not light. Like,
Yeah.
geez, that's sad.
It's not the
And then
Slips
Miss
I know.
Chameleon's like, "I can.
And then she
I'm a
disappears.
chameleon joke."
Yeah, it's a weird way to end the scene because, like, you got that really solemn line from Slips, and then Miss Chameleon just says, "I can," disappears, and then the scene ends.
You have Slips, like, dealing with just, like, depression, and Miss Chameleon, like, just making a punchline out of it.
Which I wanted to talk about this earlier, but Miss Chameleon sees that Slips is scratching himself on one of the rocks, whatever that is.
Yeah.
But she just tells him to go back to his seat. But couldn't you relate to him about his shedding because he looks like he doesn't know about this and he's going through a lot. Couldn't you as a reptile relate to this kid? Take him aside from the class and it's like, listen, Slips. Everyone goes through this.
It's only natural.
It's only I thought we could have a really intimate moment where Miss Chameleon, as a teacher, as a guidance to Slips, could have really taught him about himself more so. Them both being reptiles and related to each other, you know?
You know,
but, no.
If there's one thing I've learned about this show has taught me that teachers are stupid and they don't know anything.
Yeah, this show really goes with that theme, doesn't it? That teachers don't know anything and you can't rely on them for nothing.
So the next montage is like everyone screaming and running away from Slips, where various characters are blaming Slips for their various like ailments and shit. Henry Armadillo's there for a second, but only a second, so I was only momentarily blinded by rage. And then there's this really gross scene where like Adam and Jake are talking, and I guess like just being like, man, I can't believe what's going on. And
oh no.
and Jake and like Adam, of course, you know, references his chest hair. He's like, it's getting longer, and Jake like pulls it out, like yanks the little hair out, and then starts flossing his teeth with it.
I'm not surprised. I mean, it's definitely in character, but it is disgusting. Also, it's weird that he flosses because his teeth are so bad.
I think he just wanted to do a funny motion with that thing, which I think gross out humor, it's definitely a theme with this show. We got a lot of that gross out humor popularized by Ren and Stimpy, SpongeBob, all those.
And we got Slips just deteriorating in this episode. So like that lends itself to the gross out humor. Like that's basically the like pinnacle of this episode. It's just like Slips being just a gross sack of skin.
He's being vilified here because the like an angry mob forms and they like turn on Slips and they start like chasing him, and then
Even Adam's in on it.
Yeah, I mean everyone's in on it, literally everyone. And
literal pitchforks and torches being raised after Slips for daring to have a skin condition here.
Yeah, and he runs and Principal Pixie Frog like comes out of his office on this little like Segway kind of thing.
A Segway with an elevated platform.
Yeah, and he's like, "What's going on? Oh man, I knew I should have like banned."
No, he says that. Do I need to ban pitchforks and torches again? Which a little confusing.
Why does this keep happening?
Yeah, who got like ousted the first time?
Yeah, who did they kill? Who did they?
Probably Adam, who got like pitchforked.
and Slips is like hiding behind the principal, like, and the principal's like, "What's going on?" And they kind of explain it, and he's just like, "Oh my, really? Okay, let's do an assembly. We gotta teach y'all some stuff." And I don't know why this hadn't been done before, or why it was something that the principal like. This is not the first year that this school has been up and running, right? Like this has got to be like a 10-year-old school at most, and like maybe even longer. And like, how did you not foresee this happening again? Because it's like obviously I guess these animals are stupid and children, so they don't know what's going on, and they have this assembly about, and they show this like old movie that's like, you know, haha, from the 50s or something. I
have a theory because of this movie that they show. Okay. So it's in an assembly setting, and it's like one of those educational things, very Fallout 4 funny-esque cutscene that we get about animals. It's so the movie is from like the 50s, and it references like, this is brought to you by like nuclear radiation or something like that. And pieces of a puzzle started forming in my mind.
Oh god, I know where you're going with
this. Oh no.
In the movie, the animals look pretty normal. At least more they look more like the ones that we see in our own reality. And I'm kind of thinking, is this an like nuclear power? There was like, did it cause this?
Like
Uh,
for
is
the
this
animals to gain like intelligence.
Sapiens.
yeah? Did Are they all
Oh
mutants?
my
Like,
god.
did something happen like in the 50s
Well,
where
the
the
thing,
animals just started becoming more and more like human?
I didn't even think about this, but you're touching upon something because the animals, like you said in the show, were just wild animals, and the narrator was talking about this like he was talking to human kids about this. It's like, it's only natural that these animals would feel like would uh, evolve nature like. It's not really, even though it keeps repeating, it's only natural. It's not exactly like it's supposed to be an informational thing for animals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like teach it. Yeah, it's very much framed like because it's like talking about birds molt and bunnies have to change like grow more fur during the winter and snakes shed their skin and it's like and it keeps repeating it's only natural and it seems more like it's a movie that like a kid in the set like 50s would like sit down and watch in class to learn about aminals. But oh my god, Gert,
But
I think you really struck something here.
because in I know I'm pulling the veil back a bit, but in the future field trip movie, there is a thing where there are feral wild animals. Those exist as a concept. So I think there is a difference between the sapient domesticated animals that are in this school and that run certain things that are segregated in society here, and actual animals that are just serve the animal purpose of, I guess, being food for these animals maybe.
Possibly.
uh
It's like a goofy Pluto situation we got going on.
We're revealing the hierarchy of the natural order in the Charles Darwin Middle School universe.
Anyway, Slips does something kind of gross here. Where
Yeah, so
he's like
anyway, Slips, he gets all gross looking.
yeah, he's like after the movie's over, everyone in the crowd's like, "Oh, I guess it's natural. Okay, we shouldn't have been worried." And the principal's like, "I think you owe Slips an apology." And then he like looks over and he's like, because Slips starts like actually shedding his skin, and then he's born again as smooth and new Slips.
it's a very labored scene though. There's boils forming on his scales.
I was gonna talk about the boils and how those like are real. Like I remembered those from when I saw this episode when I was younger.
It's unnecessary. It's just a grotesque detail they wanted to add into.
They didn't have to add the redness, like the red boils. Like that was just so unnecessary.
It's props to the voice actor for Slips here. It's like he makes it sound so labored and grotesque and painful.
Yeah.
And props to like all the voices in the auditorium who like scream,
They go, "Ah!" Like, what is going
which is
on?
like that's only natural.
Yeah, and then he, when he's all fresh and smooth again, Slips proclaims, "I'm not a freak."
Yeah. Not a freak. They love using the word freak in this show, and I think it's the funniest thing ever.
Just as much as we do.
Just as much as we do.
And the episode ends and it's like, oh, happy ending, everyone's fine. The end.
It was a very strange ending. That episode went by a lot faster than the other ones, and I don't know if it was because it was like maybe actually a little bit like shorter, or if it was just funnier and like better paced.
I think it was paced really well.
Yeah, I think so too.
And the movie at the end, like the little like fake 50s movie, was actually really like fun, and like because they kept doing like the whole like, oh, it's an old movie, so they like the the film would like be off center sometimes and like switch back and forth, and it was really grainy, and like at the end it like burns.
Yeah.
That was the iris out of the episode, and I there were a lot of really neat little gags in this episode overall.
Yeah, it might have been gross, but it was pretty funny.
But this whole episode was just an allegory for puberty, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's what I figured.
Which I wanted to talk about that because it's an allegory for puberty, but animals molt and shed fur a lot more commonly than humans go through puberty, so it's not exactly a good sort of comparison.
Well, I mean, Jake asks Adam, like, he's like, do humans do this? And Adam goes, no, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, let's talk about Shiny Thing. We need to talk about Shiny Thing.
Shiny Thing is
The funniest episode of this show so far.
It really is. It hits you with a lot of quick gags.
Because it's not gross. It's not overly gross. It's a really it's a concept that could only work in animal school or with like an animal cast, and like the fact that Adam is a human like makes sense as to why he's not affected by certain things. So it's a good episode. It's funny. It and the last scene is so funny. I was like actually laughing at the show, and I was like, "What's going on?"
and Jake's voice in this one. He does some voices in it.
Yeah,
Tom Kenny must have been really having fun in the voice booth.
Yeah, this is definitely a fun episode for that, and it opens. And before I watched this, Gert and Renee had already seen it, and Gert told me, "You're going to shit yourself when you hear the first line of this episode," and I was like, "Okay." And it opens with Jake. Yeah, yes, please do an impression.
It opens with Jake, and he's looking at an object, a shiny object, and he does his best Gollum voice and goes, "Pretty, pretty, shiny, shiny."
And that's just, it has you. That just ties a fucking rope around you and it pulls you in.
Yeah, there's no like pussyfooting around this episode. They just get right into it.
It's a real attention grabber, which I appreciate.
We see Jake looking at his big shiny rock.
Yeah, he's got something hiding, and they're in a creative writing with Miss Loon, which is a bird, I think.
Yeah, she has her own little picture there showing what she is.
And
it's a fun detail I like in this show. All the teachers have little like signs like in zoos. I think we talked about this before, though.
No, it's really fun, and she's like, okay, like, let's see some creative writing, and so it goes through all the kids. Windsor is like slamming a typewriter like a wild animal.
Lupe makes a little nest because she's a bird, and Slips does like one of those little things where
paper dolls.
Yeah, paper dolls where you cut the paper and it looks like a bunch of little men holding hands.
And I'm so proud of him. He's definitely,
How do you...
What?
For not having hands.
How dare you question him? He's very talented.
Yeah, I was about to say, for like somebody who doesn't have hands,
Look,
he's very talented.
We don't need to draw attention to that like Adam would.
Yeah, Adam would. That's something Adam would say, and you don't want to be like Adam, do you, Gert?
Oh God. Has this show made me more like Adam Lyne?
No, don't say that about yourself.
We'll see in the upcoming episodes whether Gert begins the transformation.
Gert starts really shit-talking the animals in this show and talking about how she's so much better and superior than them because she's a human.
I'm so much better than them! Fuck! And that's just me every episode. Y'all are just like... Hey,
I'm not sure I want to do with this podcast with you anymore if you're going to be like this.
Why are you saying this about these fictional animals? Why are you comparing yourself to them even? It's fucked up and weird.
Adam writes a haiku. He like tries to, and you know, as much as we shit on Adam, as we literally just did 2 seconds ago, it seems like Adam's like really trying. He's like, I'm gonna write a haiku because that seems, you know, fancy and good on him. And Miss Loon's like, what are you doing? Like, this is
It's just like, this isn't anything. That's not creative writing at all. And then Adam's like, of course, I gotta eat the damn paper.
Of course, this is an animal school. I can't do anything with logic or anything thought-provoking. I have to eat the paper.
So he eats the
And
paper.
sure enough, it works.
There's
like,
a
very creative, Adam.
there's a mysterious noise coming from the back of the class. It's a very strange and sparkly sound.
Jake pops his little head out of the desk.
And there's just like a beam of light from behind him. He looks like an angel. He looks like the devil
and Adam's like,
more than ever.
Adam's like, what the hell? And Jake pulls him into the desk, and he's like, behold, and he opens his he opens his closed palms ever so slightly, and
Crinkled hands.
and a whoosh, and there's just like a shiny thing, and Adam's like, Jake, that's a glass doorknob. Like, what are you doing?
And of course, Jake defends his glass doorknob, his pretty, shiny, saying, he knows not of what he speaks.
He doesn't know. And then they go on a little, like, there's
Back
a little
and forth
dialogue
banter.
about, it's just like, hey, we can't have these shiny things in school. And Adam's like, well, why not? And Jake doesn't know. So Jake asks Miss Loon.
While holding it up for the whole class to see.
And of course, we get an example of why these items are banned. Because they
The
have the
sun
power.
Beams through it.
It beams through and refracts all the light toward the eyes of all the animals in the classroom. And they all get hypnotized. Just mesmerized by this shiny object.
Yeah, they're all like, pretty, shiny, and Jake keeps lifting it up, so they'll go like pretty, and then he'll drop it, and they're like back to normal, and then he'll like pause, and then he'll lift it up, and they'll go shiny, and then he does variations of that for like a really long time.
It feels like a minute. Like that bit goes on until, like, you know, that scene's over. So I don't know.
Oh, a thing that happens that made me laugh really hard was he lifts it up to this like the sun, and the beam hits this like ant student on the desk, and it just like kills him,
destroys him. He like gets charred, and then he's like, "Does anybody have some aloe vera?"
I love the ant kid's voice. Props to them. Like it's so fun. It's this casual man voice as he's charred to bits as an ant.
It was so sudden. It was hilarious. Like, it happens in like a second. And
Anybody have some aloe vera?
It was like the fucking Smash Ultimate trailer. Like, he just gets taken by the light.
and so then, you know, Jake gets a idea in his head. He starts lusting for power. And
Wait.
God, this happens so often.
Yeah, what do you mean starts?
Yeah, like, this is just like a thing. He's like, oh, a new way to, like, control the people of, like, the animals of the school? Yes. Give me the power.
He even uses it against Principal Pixie Frog, who was like, hey, you know shiny things are banned. And Jake's like, well, yeah, what about this? And holds it up, and he's now brainwashed the principal.
He holds it up like a JoJo's villain, there's something, like, weirdly dynamic about that shot of him.
There's a lot of dynamic shots in this episode, actually. I think that's why I liked it so much.
It's pretty. They have fun with a lot of the shots in this episode. Also, I want to mention that earlier, that before Principal Pixie Frog takes notice. He's lambasting Bull for stuffing the toilets with chum.
Oh yeah.
Which are fish. Were
But-
they students?
We don't know. Maybe maybe jumping off of last episode's theory, they were feral fish. Don't.
Ah.
But
No feelings, no pain.
but he's just like, if I catch you chumming the works again, you'll go on your permanent record. Then of course Jake does that, hypnotizes Principal Pixie Frog, and he's just mad with power.
Oh, it gets bad. He goes to the lunchroom and he like gets a bunch of bananas and he just tries to walk out, and the elephant lunch lady's like where do you think you're going? And he's just like, oh, don't mind me, and holds a little like glass doorknob.
Hypnotized. Behold my powerful object.
And she just like
Yeah.
lets him go.
I
Yeah,
wrote
it gets
here,
him go free of charge. Because apparently, I know school lunches, you have to pay for them, but at the same time, it's an animal school, and these kids have to pay for their lunches.
Yeah, that's weird. How do they get money? Do they get paid to be in the zoo? Did their parents get paid to be in the zoo?
That's the question, is it
I
not?
mean, hopefully, right? Like, hopefully. Jake is a manipulator in this episode.
Yeah, what's fucked up though is that like immediately after Jake walks out, Adam like tries to follow him out, and the lunch lady's like, hey, what are you doing?
Which idiot forgot his lunch again. He's getting lunch from the cafeteria again.
Which really just like makes the previous episodes even more worse when you think about it, because he has to pay for these lunches too, and they're not cheap. Well, I mean, Jake had all those bananas. He had a mountain of bananas, and they were like $43 in total. But
Wow.
you know, just the idea that Adam has to pay for these lunches that he doesn't even want in the first place when he's hungry, when he's starving, it's sad.
It's so sad, and things only escalate from here because it's like Mr. Hornbill. I always forget his name. He's like,
yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Hornbill's class is doing monkey butt math.
yeah, he's like
Because that's just what this has devolved to.
the square root of monkey butt divided by monkey butt, and like, you know, Jake is sitting in like the back of the classroom with
And
this
he looks like a golden god. I wrote that in my notes. He looks like a golden god.
he's got
because
like a hat that has like reflectors on him, and like flashlights pointing at like the glass doorknob he has like affixated on his like head.
I love the gag there where Adam's like, "You got a patent for that?"
he's just like, yeah, it's pending.
It's pending. I just thought that was really funny.
It was a clever little bit.
And there's like a shot of Lupe and Slips just kind of like brainwashed talking to each other, and this is when Adam decides this is too much. We can't do this anymore. And he tries to confront like Jake about it, but Jake just
Wait.
like tries to brainwash him.
I think you're glossing over like just how much in control Jake is of this school. He has everyone talking about monkey butts. He has propaganda posters.
Yeah, oh my
pasted
god.
everywhere, where
I
of just his face is like, Jake is watching you.
It's
I
really
love
messed
the-
up.
I love the way that they show power in this episode, because the way that Jake like looks is like almost divine. It's like he was like ascended into a higher plane of being, and everybody just worships him. It's so like funny.
It's funny because it's so exaggerated that he has all this power and control because he has some shiny glass doorknob.
He tries to brainwash Adam and like says like, come to the shiny side, and here it's revealed.
Oh, well.
And
Well, come. He says it like that. Like,
It's really creepy, and Adam like knocks out the glass doorknob and it shatters or something, and he's like, this is where it's revealed that Jake got that doorknob from Adam's house, because Adam makes a remark like, oh, I got all those on my doorknobs, they're not that special, and Jake goes, yeah, where do you think I got all these? And he pulls out like 8 more.
Like,
it's
oh
like,
no! Adam
oh no,
realizes.
they're antiques! And it's like, you just said they weren't special, Adam.
So, Adam begs Jake to please pull off this nonsense. Jake does a really funny response where he's like, I'll stop once you worship me like everyone else."
Yeah. And then he gives him this shitty look, like he'd won, like he got him.
Adam
And
calls him a
Adam's like,
bucket head.
And Adam was like, I'll never bow down to you!
It's like dramatic, and he gets thrown out of the school by Jake's angry mob of supporters. Not angry, just like supporters, and they just like throw him out. And he's like, oh, I know what I gotta do now. And it cuts to like he's outside and he's like looks around and he kind of glances over to the side and he's like, I got an idea. And then we have the best shot in this whole
Fucking
episode.
Christ, it's so good.
It's like the auditorium or something, and Jake is standing on like a podium and he's got like a purple wig and like I don't know how else to say it, like a dictator's outfit on, and he's just like looks powerful and imposing.
And he's just like saying like all this like, you know, like propaganda, like spreading his influence through the school, and just absolutely like wallowing in his like just power. He's so mad with it. Oh God, the way he looks. Where did they get the idea?
I absolutely love this design. This is my favorite Jake transformation because he just looks so extravagant, so regal. He's got a purple. Let's look at it from top to bottom. Okay, yeah. He's got a purple wig. These like dazzled shoulder pads with diamonds on them, with the glass doorknobs. The glass doorknobs, of course, are covering his design. He's got this red, regal-looking emperor shirt with long sleeves, and he just looks so extravagant. I don't usually say this lightly because I'm not really a JoJo's fan, but he looks like a JoJo's character.
He looks like
Let's
a
be real
JoJo's
here.
character.
He looks like a JoJo's character. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to say. There's like a coconut on the like end of like a little like point on his head. He's got a unibrow.
It's wild. It's so good. And what happens next is even better because Adam bursts in the room and he's covered in hubcaps, and they just there's like a moment where they're like, it's time for like a war to break out between them, and they both spend like 2 minutes shining themselves to make sure that they're the shinier ones.
It's a very intensive shining montage.
The thing that Adam says when he breaks through is just like, they just keep using the word freak in this show, and it's so great. And he's just like, I'm gonna fight you, you power mad freak.
You're a freak. You're a freak.
You're a freak. You're a freak.
And then they just have like a you know those jokes that it's like a badly dubbed kung fu movie? It's like that, and they're like shooting beams at each other. It's like really Dragon Ball.
And
There's
is like,
laser beam noises.
Jake literally, like, he's like flying through the air. Like, he's like, his cape is like swirling behind him. It's like weirdly like good.
It really reminds me of. I know Samurai Jack draws its inspirations from other things, but
For
it
my
feels.
partners and
But it really feels like this episode was just really parodying Samurai Jack because Samurai Jack didn't come all that long before My Gym Partner's a Monkey. I don't think, right? So
early 2000s, so like 2004 around there, I think.
so I feel the inspiration is there, and it just feels so comical. It's so over the top, and it feels kind of actiony, pretty cool. But at the same time, they're just shooting light at each other, just reflecting light off of each other.
It's so good. And then the ant student is like, "Uh-oh, I see where this is going," and he puts on like a little hazmat suit, but then an elephant tramples him.
Yeah, like that's a really good joke. Like, I honestly can't believe it.
That's how you do a running gag.
That's how you do a running gag. And
Not
just
that one other episode where a goat just gets a watermelon on his head and he knocks into stuff.
For like a whole
Like
episode.
God, and then the fucking laser beam like colliding kamehamehas
Yeah,
that they do,
it was-
except with like light, and you can just hear that song when from Dragon Ball at the end of the Cell Saga. You just hear the birds chirping.
And there's just like just mounting pressure as the two of them are colliding, and you can almost hear Gohan yelling like, "Ah!"
Yeah.
It's so
Da, 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 da,
da! It's so good. And of course, Adam is victorious, and all the doorknobs get knocked off of Jake. And then there's this weird slow-mo segment where Adam is struggling to catch all, and he's like, "Oh no!"
Kill me if I don't get the doorknob.
He's catching all the doorknobs, and he catches them, and he's like, "Finally, I have the power." And here's where I kept the question: why isn't Jake as affected as the other students? Like, obviously he was doing the whole shiny thing earlier, but ever since then, he seems to not be very affected by, like, the shiny thing. Why is that?
Maybe it's because he didn't look at it or something, or maybe it's because he's like an ape. Maybe he's close
but
enough
Windsor-
to
Well,
humanity.
Windsor's an 8.
Okay, well maybe Jake is a freak.
Jake is an outlier.
I
Jake,
knew he wasn't a spider monkey. Just look at him. Look at him. How could he be a spider monkey? He doesn't look anything like one.
he was building tolerance throughout the episode so he could eventually like use it for like power.
It's really tragic here, though, because you think maybe Adam has won for once in his life, but Principal Pixie Frog like jumps up behind him and is like Adam Lion, and he drops all the doorknobs and they all break. It's
And he's like, I'm sorry, Principal Pixie Frog. I knew about the shiny rule. And Principal Pixie Frog's just like, well, those are my hubcaps you were using.
Yeah, he's just like, forget about the shiny thing.
Which,
You took my hubcaps.
Which, it's so fucking funny that he drives a car.
how does he do it?
It's so funny that Principal Pixie Frog, this little frog, drives an entire car. It's so funny to me. Like a whole car. He just drives one to school every day.
Which begs the question, is Principal Pixie Frog part of some wealthy animal elite that is able to drive these cars, that is able to ride in these human vehicles? Because I can't imagine every single animal can be given that opportunity.
Well,
So-
he'll ride in a nice car, but he won't buy cashews for anybody.
Exactly.
That's related to an episode later in the future. I don't know what number it is, but
We'll get to it. But I think overall, this episode was really comical. It didn't really preach to us any morals, which I'm thankful for, honestly.
Yeah,
Just looking at the other episodes, I'd rather they didn't.
there's no morals that I want to learn from my gym partner's a monkey. Thank you very much. I think I'd rather just find them somewhere else.
I enjoyed these episodes though. What did y'all think?
I thought they were good. The best ones that we've seen so far, definitely, and just like a breath of fresh air from like the bullshit that we've had to deal with up until this point. Because they've been like, the episodes haven't been awful. There's been some funny moments, but honestly, there's been a lot of boring in them.
I think Shiny Thing is definitely right now my number one, and I still stand by that the A Word is a funny episode, and I like it, despite its terrible message.
It's funny. It is funny.
It's funny,
But-
and it exemplifies just Adam's character of just being this whining, downtrodden human being in this animal school. But also, I think the Shiny Thing really does that one better. It has that nice back and forth with Jake and Adam, where it cuts the bullshit. It just says straight up, Jake is the villain. He's just the villain. It's what we knew all along. It's what I made. It's what I made clear in that promotional poster at the very beginning of this podcast. Jake is the puppet master controlling everything behind the scenes.
Also, like, Jake in this episode is just so, like... I was just going to, like, talk about this. Fuck, I forgot. Oh, well.
Anyway, before we end the episode, I'd like to read a few comments we've gotten from you lovely fans out there. Remember, you can always leave comments on our YouTube videos or our Twitter posts, and you might get read on the show. All right. So, last episode, we talked about the trans peacock, and two people here, Jasper and Sebastian, both said that, yes, my gym partner Savunky did help me realize my identity. Sebastian says, my gym partner's a gender. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sophia here says, if I see Henry Armadillo one more time, I'm going to strangle his neck through my monitor.
Listen, I understand your sentiments but at the same time, I can't hate Henry Armadillo.
Why can't you?
Because he was made purposefully.
Why can't you be right?
He was made purposefully. His sole existence is to be more pathetic than Adam Lyon. He's supposed to be the baseline of absolute being pathetic.
I just hate characters like that. They make me so angry, even if that is the point. Like, I'm allowed to hate him.
But I don't know. I think he's funny. I think he's a funny little guy.
You're valid, I guess.
But I think there's an episode later on that'll definitely infuriate you. I forgot what it was really about, but I know it very much centers on Henry Armadillo, and I think it's going to be very infuriating for the both of you, and very hilarious for me.
I can't wait to get mad. Join us next week, because we'll be talking about the episodes Amazon Kevin and Grub Drive.
Amazon Kevin, oh, that gave me like a wave of feelings that, like I remember that.
Yeah. Oh, and we'll remember a lot more of it, along with you, lovely folk.
Yes.
When we watch those episodes and relay them back to you. Thank you so much for supporting us. For watching our videos.
Shout out to the people who are watching these with us.
Yeah, you are the true MVPs here. But also shout out to the people who aren't watching the episodes because you are saving yourself a lot of time.
And we are here to save you the trouble of watching them.
Anyway.
I suppose.
I'm Lucy.
I'm Gert.
And I'm Renee.
And keep on
monkeying around.
Woo!
All right.